Welcome back in. This segment of our program brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. New roofs, roof repairs, guttering. Daniel Hood Roofing handles all three. And after this last winter storm, I was hearing all kinds of ice hit my roof, and then I heard the water pouring down the gutters and spouts yesterday. I'm going to have to go check everything. But after this winter storm, it might be a good time for you to go look and see if you need any kind of roofing work done. Nobody does a better job than Daniel Hood Roofing. Won an award that listed him as one of the top 100 roofers in the United States. I mean, that's hard to beat, folks. Top 100 in the country. Turn to DanielHoodRoofing.com to learn more. All right. Now, how does our system work against teams that Tennessee has already played? I went back and reapplied the math based on the 25 teams' averages. I looked and saw how many teams checked the most boxes. All right. Texas was 12 out of 12. That was the worst possible matchup in the tourney that we're going to show you. 12 out of 12, and you lost to them. Texas Tech was 10 out of 12. You lost to them. Arizona, you beat them. They were a 9. Arkansas, you split with them. Auburn, you beat them. Villanova, you lost. Kentucky was an 8, split with them. LSU split with them. Beat Florida, which was a 7. Lost to Alabama, which was a 5. Crushed North Carolina, which was surprisingly a 2 in our system. What it tells me is, and I would tell you this with my eye test as well, if you played Alabama again, I think you beat them. You should have beaten. Only 5 is not that many. You should win that. Mm-hmm. If you played Arizona and Auburn on the road, I don't know that you win those. I think you stole 2 and you had 1 stolen from you. And that's what the system seems to agree with there. But let's take a look. Good teams. Over at the big board, we have Vanna Cavaliers. Vanna, if you can do my pointing. And this thing had to be printed a couple of days ago, so I've had to mark through, like Alcorn State, they've been eliminated. New Orleans, Long Beach State. But walk over, show people the green over there is what we're looking at. There you go. Excellent job. We're looking, the 2s are the ones that are the best matchups in the field in terms of teams that stylistically just don't scare Tennessee. Colgate, there's a chance you can play them in the first round. Yale, but North Carolina, I wouldn't want to play them again just because the name, because you've already beaten them once. But in terms of stylistically, that would be not a scary matchup for Tennessee. Then you get into the 3s, which are a little bit more difficult. But again, these are teams you want to see. And down there, Chuck, if you could point at the bottom underneath Princeton, I had to write in Utah State. And there are 3. I don't know if people can read that one, but Utah State is down there. Then you get into the 4s, which are a little bit more challenging. But again, those aren't scary. Chattanooga, however, they're only a 4, but they're one of those tempo teams. They play at a really deliberate pace, which could worry UT. All right, let's flip it to the other side and look at dangerous styles. All right, thank you, Chuck. Excellent.
Thank you.
Indiana 7, Gonzaga, only 7. Still wouldn't want to play Gonzaga. But you look at, this is what I was talking about in that last segment. Gonzaga is a 7, North Texas is a 7. All right, well, they both stylistically offer some problems for Tennessee. I'd rather play North Texas than Gonzaga. But what this tells you is, if you see North Texas and you automatically think, oh, that's a breeze, not so fast. They play a style that would make them more difficult than some other team you haven't ever heard of. You'd rather play Weber State than North Texas, for example. Then you go down there, you see LSU and Kentucky. If you see them again, they're 8s. Florida's a 7. But you move on it. Once you get into the 8s, it's kind of a danger zone. UConn, Illinois, UCLA, San Diego State. You wouldn't think San Diego State, that's an 8. Arizona, Auburn, Memphis is a 9. Kansas, Villanova, who beat you. Arkansas, who got you once. Loyola Chicago, got a history with them. They're a 9. That's not the system you want to play. Those bottom 3, no thank you. Don't want any of those Texas teams. Don't want Houston. Don't want Texas Tech. Do not want Texas. Out of 100 and something teams we looked at, only 1 did 12 things that work against Tennessee, and that was Texas, who beat you. And until you made that run late, beating you pretty handily. I've added something new this year. Top 10 dangers, I'm calling it. That's in the maroon, closest to Chuck. Start in the upper left with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. All right, that says 3/4. No, we're not doing fractions. What that means is they only match 4 categories, 4 out of 12. So they wouldn't be a worry. But I looked, and come to me here for a second. If you look, Chris, if you look and you say anybody over here is dangerous for Tennessee, over here is not. What I did was I looked at who are the 10 most dangerous. Way over here. That's what this ranks. So when you look at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, there's only 4 times that they match Tennessee. But in 3 of those 4 categories, they really do what Tennessee doesn't like. UC Santa Barbara is another one that they may not be a lot of red flags, but the ones they've got are strong. Baylor, same way. Then you get to Florida, UConn. Memphis 3 out of 9, VCU 4, LSU 4. Then you're in Loyola Chicago, Auburn 4, Texas Tech who beat you 4, Gonzaga 5, Arizona 5, Texas 5, San Diego State 6 of their 8, and Houston 7 of 10. If you're asking me, I don't want to see Texas, Houston, Texas Tech, San Diego State anywhere near the Tennessee bracket. Guys, any thoughts, responses to our nonsense up there? Any games, any teams that surprise you as being more difficult or not as difficult based on our silly little system?
You don't want to play any non-conference team from the state of Texas.
Basically, yes.
Got that one.
No non-conference from Texas. Yeah, Texas A&M, by the way, in case you're wondering today, they're 6, which is not, that's kind of in the middle, so that's not a big scare point for Tennessee. Any names up there surprise you? I thought the North Carolina is a 2. Now, you whipped them, but I'm still scared of that name, if it's me.
And they played pretty well down the stretch.
They did.
Yeah.
And that's, this takes their numbers for the entire season. It doesn't tell you their number. Like Tennessee's numbers are based on the whole year. So that includes those first 20 games when they weren't scoring as opposed to the last 11 when they've lit it up. Anything surprise you guys about names on that list or no?
Well, some of them for me, I mean, I think Indiana's playing really good basketball right now, and they're a team that I wouldn't necessarily want to see. You look at a team like a Wisconsin, that people have a perception about a Wisconsin team, but if you watch them, they're not the old Bo Ryan where they're going to slow you down, wear you out type of team, and so I can understand why that matchup is there. Oklahoma's not as good. They're up there. They're good on paper, but they're also playing well. So some of it comes about to how teams are playing right now versus what some of these statistics say, like you mentioned. But yeah, there's so much parity up there. This is what's going to make this NCAA tournament so much fun.
John, if I could real quick, the UCLA has really stood out to me, and so has Memphis. But the team I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Houston, because they have guards that can shoot it and bigs that can defend and score.
And they may be one of these teams that they haven't really beaten any quad 1 teams all year. So they might not get a high seed, which could drop them down into your area. And I don't want that. I hope they get a good seed and stay away from you. Josh, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I would have expected a higher number for Gonzaga, which you highlighted there. But also, and they have big-time talent. Chet Holmgren could be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. But the coaches know each other, Mark Few and Rick Barnes, right? And they've had big-time matchups. Think about when Gonzaga was number 1 just a few years ago. So I would have expected a higher number, but also I don't think Tennessee would be afraid of Gonzaga at all.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can throw all this out. You can throw anybody's system out when it comes to college basketball because it's going to come down to one thing. You hot? Are you hot? If you're not hot, you can lose to anybody. If you are hot, you can beat anybody. But that's our fun little way of doing it. We'll break down the best and worst case scenarios a little later in the show. But when we come back, I want to ask these two. They've been through Selection Sunday. Fans love it. I love it. There's nothing more fun than sitting there and filling out your bracket. What's it like for a player sitting there? What's it like for a coach sitting there knowing I'm going to have to do the scout on this very quickly? We'll discuss it with Mark Pankratz and Isaiah Victor next. Come on back.